The world narrowed to the glint of sunlight on chrome, the smell of hot asphalt, and the sharp crack of a single gunshot. Ryan was just trying to get through the day. A Saturday. Grocery run. His 6-year-old daughter, Sophie, swung his hand, chattering about the cartoon she'd watched that morning. The parking lot of the Sunny Day Market was a normal slice of suburban chaos. Shopping carts, minivans, the distant wail of a kid who didn't want to leave. Then, the shouting. A brutal guttural argument near a cluster of motorcycles. Ryan's paternal instincts prickled. He tightened his grip on Sophie's hand, pulling her slightly behind him. His eyes scanned the scene. 2 men, faces contorted with rage, and a little girl, maybe 8, with dark braids frozen in fear between them. She was clutching a melting ice cream cone, her eyes wide with terror. He didn't see the gun until it was too late. One of the men, a hulking figure with a face like cracked leather, drew a pistol. It wasn't aimed at his opponent. In his blind fury, the barrel swung wildly, centering on the space where the little girl stood. Time didn't slow down. It accelerated. There was no thought, no calculation of risk. There was only a primal electric command that surged from Ryan's soul to his muscles. Protect the child. He shoved Sophie behind a parked car, a single forceful push that said, "Stay down." Then he moved. 2 long strides and he was in front of the little girl, his back to the gunman, his arms spread wide, a human shield. The gunshot was deafening. A searing, white-hot pain exploded in Ryan's shoulder. The impact spun him around and he crumpled to the asphalt, the world fading in and out to the sound of Sophie's screams. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the gunman's face, now a mask of shock being tackled to the ground by the other man, the one he'd been fighting, the man with the leather vest that read Hell's Angels. "Hi, I'm Ryan." And that single stupid instinctive decision didn't just put a bullet in my shoulder, it rewrote the entire story of my life. I woke up in a hospital room. The air smelled of antiseptic. Sophie's small face was the first thing I saw, her cheeks stained with tears. "Daddy, you're okay," she whispered, clutching my good hand. Then I saw the others. The room was filled with them, big men, covered in tattoos, wearing leather vests covered in patches. They stood silently, respectfully, lining the walls. And in the chair closest to my bed sat the man from the parking lot, the one who'd tackled the shooter. Up close, he was even more imposing. A thick beard, eyes that had seen too much, and a quiet intensity that filled the room. He leaned forward. His voice was a low, gravelly rumble. "Name's Cole." He gestured to the little girl now clinging to his leg, the girl with the braids. "This is my daughter, Lily." Lily looked up at me, her eyes full of a solemn gratitude no child should ever have to hold. "Thank you for saving me, mister," she whispered. Cole's jaw was tight. The emotion in his eyes was raw, powerful. "You took a bullet for my girl. You didn't know who she was. You didn't know who I was. You just acted." He paused, choosing his words with a weight that felt ancient. That kind of debt. It don't get paid back with a thank you. It gets paid back with loyalty. My life for yours. My club for your family. That's the code. I was a quiet graphic designer, a single dad who worried about mortgage payments and PTA meetings. My world was soft edges and quiet anxieties. Cole's world was built on horsepower and hard lines. We should have had nothing in common, but we had everything in common. We were fathers. The loyalty Cole promised wasn't just words. The shooter was a prospect from a rival gang. While I was recovering, Cole and his club handled it. There were no police reports, no messy trials. There was just a message sent and received in the language their world understood. The threat was permanently neutralized, but their protection went further. The next Monday, when I dropped a nervous Sophie off at elementary school, a line of gleaming Harley-Davidsons was parked across the street. Cole, along with 5 of his brothers, stood there, arms crossed. They weren't causing trouble. They were just present, a silent, imposing wall of leather and muscle. The school principal came out, looking terrified. Cole simply said, "Just making sure our friend's kid has a safe day. That's all." The bullies who had sometimes picked on Sophie suddenly became her most ardent defenders. The neighborhood kids looked at her with a new kind of awe. She was under the protection of the angels. Cole started coming over on Sunday afternoons. He'd bring Lily, and the girls would play in the backyard while we sat on the porch. He'd drink a beer and I'd have a coffee. We didn't talk about club business. We talked about dad stuff, about the struggles of raising daughters alone, about the fear of not being enough. He confessed he'd been trying to get Lily away from the life, to give her a normal childhood. I confessed I was always afraid I wasn't strong enough to protect Sophie on my own. We were two sides of the same coin. He had all the strength in the world but craved the normalcy I had. I had the normalcy but craved the strength he possessed. One evening he showed up at my door alone. He handed me a small wrapped box. Inside was a simple leather keychain with a single custom-made patch sewn onto it. It wasn't the full Hell's Angels insignia. It was a unique design, a shield with a single wing on one side and a child's handprint on the other. "It's a prospect patch," he said, a rare, genuine smile touching his eyes. "For family. You're one of us now, brother. Not on the road, but in here." He tapped his chest over his heart. I'd spent years feeling alone, carrying the weight of parenthood by myself. Now I had a brother. I had an army. The most unconventional, fiercely loyal family I could ever imagine. So I have to ask you, if you saw a child in danger, would you step in, not knowing what it would cost? And if that act bound you to a world you never knew, a family forged in sacrifice, would you embrace it? Or would you walk away from the brotherhood you never knew you needed?